If you hear my fan, please excuse it. It is hot, hot, hot. Oh my god, I'm hot. Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Tina Marie J. My husband is a devout, believing Christian. I used to be a Christian. I am no longer a Christian. I now consider myself agnostic. However, I do not put a barricade around that one label. I don't even really walk around saying I'm agnostic, I'm agnostic. To me, labels are not a really big deal because I don't allow any labels to define who I am as an individual. However, when it comes to religion and this belief, my husband sees things very different. So for this video, I'm gonna talk to you guys about how I raise my kids as me being an agnostic and my husband being a believer. First, I'm just gonna backtrack just a little bit. My dad was a pastor, but he wasn't in my life 100% of the time. My mom was a single mom, but she was also a devout Christian, and she still is. So she did raise me in the faith. She took me to church every single Sunday. Oh, how I hated going to church every freaking Sunday. It was like a never-ending Sunday for me. Anyway, I remember my mom used to buy me these Christian books from this Christian bookstore, and I used to love going. A majority of the books that she used to get me used to talk about being selfless, being loving, being compassionate, helping people, and things like that. Me being raised as a Christian, I was mainly shown how to have good, decent morals and have good characteristics. My mom was really big on respect and compassion and loving people for who they are. My mom wasn't one of those kind of Christians where she would say, oh Tina, if you don't do A, B, and C right, then you're gonna go to hell, so you better do the right thing, you have to stick with this religion, you have to stick with this faith. She was more the type that she just instilled a lot of belief in me, and she'd always tell me to pray, and she'd always tell me that God is there, God helps you. If I call on Jesus' name, he will be there. And so that's what I used to always do growing up. This religion is one that I did grow up a part of, and it was a major part of my life, and it was pretty much all I ever knew. When I met my husband, when I first met him, he was not a Christian. He believed in some sort of a higher power, but he didn't believe in anything else. He just had never went to church ever. I was a church girl when we met. I introduced him to church. When we got married, my husband had converted to Christianity on his own, and ever since he has been a very devout Christian. I've been married for almost 9 years now. We have 2 daughters, 9.5-year-old and a 12.5-year-old. I have just recently come out of my religious closet as a non-believer. It is very, very difficult coming out of the religious closet. It's not easy when you're married to someone who is a full-on devout Christian and you're just a full-on devout non-Christian, if you could call it that. I've had a couple of people ask me, how do you raise your girls now that you're not a Christian? Like, you don't go to church anymore. How does that work out? Basically, I do not go to church at all with my family. That was not a very easy decision to make, but I realized I have to be true to myself. I have to be real with who I am. I want to raise young women to learn to be true to themselves and not to try and make everyone else happy, because in the real world, people are never going to be happy with whatever we do. It doesn't matter what we're doing. No one's ever going to really approve of everything we do. My 9.5-year-old does question why I don't go to church anymore with her and daddy and her sister, and she'll say things to me like, well mommy, you're supposed to go to church and you're supposed to pray, and you didn't pray before you ate your food, and why don't you go to church with us anymore? I just tell her, mommy doesn't have to go to church. Mommy can choose to go to church, but mommy just doesn't want to go to church. My husband does not like when I say that. Honestly, I'm a very truthful person, even with my own kids. I am careful as to how much truth I do tell them, but I'd rather be honest with my kids than to tell them some lie. It does become very challenging because at this point, my husband will say something like, you're right, mommy is supposed to come with us to church. And I personally don't like when he does that because it goes against me and it kind of puts me out like I'm some bad guy. But then at the same time, I don't get upset because I understand exactly why he's doing it. My husband wants our kids to grow up to be Christians, to get baptized, to be fully in the faith the way he is. Now when it comes to my 12.5-year-old, She knows a lot of things. She's very close to me. She looks up to me in a different kind of way. My youngest one is more of a daddy's girl, but my oldest daughter is a mommy's girl. So she does know that I make my YouTube channel based off of faith and religion and cults and things like that. But I don't allow my kids to be around when I am filming. But she does ask questions about certain things. My daughter has asked me in private, how come you don't go to church anymore? She one day came up to me and shocked me. She was like, do you still believe in God, or are you like one of those atheist type of people? She also notices the type of books I read. Like, I have books about spirituality and about energies and things like that. Things that Christians usually wouldn't read. So I did have some discussions with my older daughter, and I explained to her, mommy believes in something, but not the same thing that daddy believes in. But she doesn't become judgmental. She actually has opened up to me recently. She basically does believe in God, but she doesn't think that certain things make sense. Not too long ago, my 12-and-a-half-year-old's best friend tried to commit suicide. She came out the closet as being gay. She told my daughter that she's gonna go to hell because she's gay and because God doesn't allow gays to heaven. My daughter had never heard of such a thing, so she came home shocked. She was like, I can't believe that she actually thinks she's gonna go to hell because she's gay. Jesus loves everyone. Why would he send her to hell because she likes girls? I had to explain to my daughter that in the Bible, according to the Bible, it does say that homosexuality is a sin. Therefore, people who are involved in any homosexuality activity will not go to heaven. This was the first time that she really heard anything like this. So she honestly really just genuinely thought that everyone gets a pass to go to heaven as long as you're a good person and you don't murder anyone. I also try to be very careful not to step on my husband's toes, because I told him when I first came out of my religious closet that I 100% respect him taking the reins and raising our children to be believers. That means taking them to church every Sunday, letting them be a part of whatever church activities that go on, reading the Bible with them. As someone who's a non-believer, I am very flexible. I've always been someone who respects, and I think that comes from my upbringing, the fact that my mom always taught me how to love people no matter what. And she always would tell me things like, you know, you don't want to be so self-righteous. Don't be one of those Christians that bashes other people because they don't believe what you believe. Because in the real world, everyone does not believe what you believe. So that isn't such a hard thing for me to do, even as a non-believer. I still have Christian friends, Christian family. I love everybody. I don't really care. The main focus that I have when it comes to raising my kids is I want to raise them the same way that I was raised, with morals, having a belief in themselves. That was one thing that I lacked, and I didn't start to have real true belief in myself until I left religion, to be honest with you. I have had people say to me, well, you're not a Christian anymore, so how are you going to teach your kids to be good people? I think the problem is that many Christians honestly believe that if you're not a Christian, you're suddenly some evil person out to get everyone and you become the next Hitler, and that is ridiculous. I was one of those Christians who thought if you're not a Christian, then where the hell do you get your morals? I have a different kind of view, a different kind of perspective on things, because I do see life through a whole different lens, whereas before I saw it only through the lens of a Christian. Now, when it comes to my husband raising the girls, he does want them to be Christians. He wants them to be very devout, like I said before. He's not happy with the fact that his wife is now no longer a Christian, of course. And so that is a struggle that we've been going through. That is a battle, but that's also a part of my journey. So I do embrace it. Honestly, in the beginning, I thought that since I told him, you can do what you want. You want to take the girls to church with you on Sunday, go ahead. You want to read the Bible with them, you want to teach them about right and wrong according to the Holy Bible, then you can go ahead. I thought that that was going to make things a little bit easier, but it seems to not really matter either way. As long as I'm not a Christian, it's kind of difficult raising them with someone who is a Christian. My husband still feels like I am not a good influence, especially on my oldest daughter. Several times he said certain things along the lines of, me not raising them the way they should be raised, which I believe I am. I mean, I'm a great mom. Honestly, I work really hard as a mom to make sure that my kids have everything and to give them the opportunities that I never was able to have. So for me to make sure that my kids have the best interests is my top priority, no matter what religion I am or what religion I'm not. My husband and I have always kind of been back and forth battling on how to raise the kids, because he's more of a disciplinarian, whereas I'm a little more easygoing and a little more sensitive. I have a little more patience than he does. My kids are really good kids. They're very respectful, very loving, and I make sure that they have this as part of who they are. I started to think to myself, what if both of my kids, or even just one of my kids, especially my oldest daughter, since like he says, I have such an influence on her because she's a mommy's girl, she really looks up to me. What if one day she grows up and then she says, I don't believe in God? Or what if one day she grows up and she's like, I don't believe in the Bible or religion, I just believe in a higher power? I know 100% my husband's gonna blame me. He has a history of blaming me for a lot of things when it comes to my kids. That is where we battle. I mean, we had our kids young. I was only 19 when I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I was 22 when I got pregnant with my youngest daughter. We went through a lot, honestly. Like, my life is not some pretty perfect life on a platter at all. So me leaving religion is just like topping it all on. Like, there could not be a better time to just bring it on in. But at the same time, it's not like I woke up and said, ooh, I'm agnostic today. Gradually, steps led me up to this point where I am now. I think that my husband's fear is that my girls are gonna see me and they're going to feel that what I'm doing is okay. And they're gonna go to him one day and say, I don't want to go to church anymore, I don't want to read the Bible, and I kind of just want to do my own thing now and be my own individual free thinking self. In my own personal opinion, I would prefer that my girls do learn about religion rather than allow my husband to indoctrinate them. If you're a Christian and you're force feeding your child Christianity, you don't really stop to think like, wait a minute, what if one day my kid grows up and is like, you know what, I'm really curious. You always say that the Bible is true, but I don't know, I've never really seen God before. Like, how am I supposed to know that even you know what you're talking about? I wasn't force-fed religion in a negative way, but my mom brought God into every part of my life and made sure that God was in every single part of my life. And so I did always feel like I couldn't do anything without praying, or I couldn't do anything without God. One thing I did tell my 12-and-a-half-year-old one day was that I want her to make the decision for herself as to what she believes in one day when she's older and when she's ready to figure out things for herself, because we all get to a point in our life where we want to figure out certain things. We're trying to find out who we are. And so I told her, I don't care what you believe in. I love you no matter what. Whatever religion you decide to follow, make sure that you do research and you decide for yourself. Don't choose it because of me or because of daddy or because of your friends or because of anyone on TV or anyone in church. Choose what you believe in based on yourself. And if it doesn't sit right with you and you feel like you don't really truly believe in this, but you are afraid of being honest because you're afraid of what me or your dad are gonna say, I don't want you to think that way. I want you to actually do your research and figure it out for yourself. I also don't want my kids to grow up fearful of things that they don't need to be fearful of. I went into this store that sells like spiritual stuff. It's a spiritual store. I went in there because I just wanted to check it out. It was new and I was really attracted to the crystals and to some of the bracelets they had. And my daughter was afraid to go in the store. She was like, I don't want to go in here. I'm afraid it's evil. Something evil is going to follow us. At that point, I really felt like I could see myself in her because I grew up afraid of so many things. And after I left religion, I realized like these things don't do anything to me. I honestly think that a lot of what we believe in our own mind manifests in reality. So if you believe something is harmful for you, you're going to fear it. So I then explained to my daughter that I don't want her to fear these things, and you don't have to accept everything, but just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you have to be fearful of it. That's something I learned coming out of Christianity, is that the things that we don't understand the most are the things that we tend to fear the most. I don't want my girls to grow up feeling fearful of things. I want them to be open. I want them to be honest with themselves. I'm not saying that they have to go and become witches. I just want my girls to know that there is so much more in the world, and I don't want them to follow something just because I told them to or because their father told them to. I explained to my girls that what is most important and that what I focus on with them is that they're good people, they're good-hearted, they love people, they accept people, they're compassionate, they're understanding, and they are the least bit judgmental. I want them to grow up and say, you know what, I'm not going to judge that person because I don't know how they got in that situation. Or I'm not going to bash that person because they don't have the same belief as me. I don't want them to grow up to be those type of individuals. So I do instill a lot of respect into my children. But even though they're doing really well with that, my husband does not believe that that is enough. Of course, he feels like they have to get baptized one day. And even though he does say, yeah, it is their choice, he also says, but I would rather that they do these things and that they follow God, because this is the way, this is the only way, this is the right way. Even though my husband won't admit it, I know that he is afraid that they're gonna follow me and I'm gonna lead them to hell. Why should it matter whether they're Christian or not? The only option I could think of is that my husband is afraid that if my kids are not Christians, then they're not gonna make it to heaven. And that's a fear I don't want to instill in them, because that is a fear that I still hold on to a little bit, and it's a very difficult fear to let go of. So as you can see, raising kids when you are a non-believer and your spouse is a believer is very, very challenging. I'm still new to the game. You kind of just gotta try your best to just make it flow and make it work out. It really takes two individuals, because if one person is flexible and the other person is giving the other one a hard time, it's gonna be really difficult. That's kind of my case, where I'm flexible, but my husband is like really rigid. It's not enough for him. It's like, no, they have to have it this way. That's when you can get into fights. It makes the child believe that you yourself as a non-believer is doing something wrong. Really, no one can judge you just because you are not a Christian. There's so many great moms and dads out there. There are many non-believers and Xers out there, and that should not be any kind of reflection on who you are and how you are as a parent. I don't really allow the things that my husband says to get to my core, because if I allow it to get to my core, it's gonna break me down. And trust me, it's so freaking difficult, because there are times like recently where I'm just really going through it and it gets to me. And yes, I do have my moments where I might cry alone in my room and I might feel bad, because leaving religion is a difficult journey. It's not easy. You kind of start to see things very different, and people kind of start to think that they have to look at you differently, when really I'm the same person. I just don't believe in the same old things. But if you allow for your spouse's comments and the way that they treat you to get to your core, you're never going to really be able to make it through your journey in one piece. You're just going to be all broken up. And you have to learn how to trust yourself and how to love yourself the most, especially when other people that should be loving you are not loving you. I'm not saying my husband's not loving me, because he does love me, but I do see a difference in how he is with me compared to how he was with me when I was a part of the faith. That's the end of this video. Stay tuned, because I will start my little series on interfaith marriages. If you have not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button ASAP, and like this if you like it. And also join my Beautiful Souls group if you were a part of religion, or you just left a really, really strict cult and you were traumatized or hurt in any kind of way. Join my Facebook group. I have all that information down below. I am taking video requests, and I am also looking for some people to interview to talk about marriage, interfaith, and how you were able to deal, or how you're dealing right now. So just shoot me an email, hbhl@yahoo.com, which is down below, or you can go on my social media, click on the links down below, and send me a DM and let me know that you want to do an interview. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you and love you all so much. I'll see you later.